we in the cultural sector do not take steps to understand the changes taking place in young people's lives today, we will not be able to meet their cultural needs, and the arts and cultural sector could become irrelevant to emerging generations of young adults. Young people's lives nowadays are very different to the experiences we had as young people. And communicating that and how different they are is really important so that we can take notice of what sort of arts and cultural experiences they're looking for that will meet their needs.
This research is about young people and how they engage in culture. So we as a sector have all sorts of assumptions about what they do, how they do it, why they do it, and this research was an opportunity to look at that completely afresh.
This research is about young people's lives, how they engage with culture, when they engage with culture, and who are the influences of that. It's the first time that we're aware of that a piece of research has been young person led, where it's been co-designed with them. The qualitative section that we were leading on enabled us to work with peer researchers to autonomously and authentically collect responses that were self-initiated and self-proclaimed ideas of what culture is and who they are as individuals.
It's so important to engage children and young people on their terms. Obviously, we think it's really important to engage with arts and culture, but we can't necessarily expect young people to feel the same without engaging them in a way that they think is meaningful and important.
Social outcomes are dominant, but they're also looking for a range of other outcomes. This research is significant because it's looking at young people's journeys to engagement. There's plenty of research which has been done before which looks at what culture young people engage with, but there hasn't been much research which says how did they get to that point? You know, how do they know what's available to them, what influences them to engage? So it's looking at their journey, their trigger points, their influences, so that hopefully in the future the cultural sector can build on that and understand at what point and how to engage young people. There are many key findings, but I think the things that are different about this is the extent of digital engagement and connectivity. We know that, it's in all the mainstream media, but I think it's shown us just how truly innate digital connectivity is for young people.
There's some revolutionary findings for the cultural sector, and having the opportunity to have that evidence base directly from young people to say we don't necessarily need cultural organisations to be on the cutting edge, we just need them to be engaging with us in the places where we're using technology and how we're using it.
It does illustrate young people's desire to do something and then post it, you know, to be active in what they're doing. It's also shown just how much there is a desire for cultural and creative engagement, and that young people have a much wider definition of what that means. So there are sector definitions, and certain, you know, the cultural sector funds certain forms of culture. Young people have a much wider definition of arts and culture and a desire to engage in that much wider definition. And I think what's also interesting about it is that they not only want to engage more widely, they want to develop skills in it.
It's highlighted for me a need for cultural organisations to kind of get rid of traditional ideas of their careers and the career paths and the organisational structures, and that actually we need to be building resilient cultural organisations that can embrace the skill sets of the next generation of young people and the next creative leaders.
I think this research for the creative and cultural sector is going to mean that they're going to have to really consider their offer for children and young people, particularly online. And it's not just a matter of putting content up there and hoping that young people are going to come to it. It's going to be about engaging young people, getting them to create the content and bring them in so that they're really at the starting point of everything that they do.
Hopefully the report will encourage cultural organisations to take maybe one thing from the research that they feel they can implement themselves and is actionable. So even if it's as simple as enabling staff to be able to more quickly and in a more agile fashion put content online, that would be great. If it's something bigger like creating a youth panel who will then come and be their vloggers and document their venue and their activities, then that would be very exciting.
I think the creative and cultural sector will realise that there's now the evidence base to be better advocates for young people and how they can be more creative in embedding them within the organisation and hopefully take more risks in what they're producing, how they're working with young people.
I think from a sector point of view, I'd like to see it influencing policy in terms of what's funded and how we fund work with and for young people. So I think the funding agencies need to think about what this research means in terms of what they're funding.
I think arts and cultural organisations can take those recommendations and really examine them in terms of their current practice. So we're not saying completely revamp everything you're doing now in the light of this research. It is a conversation that we've started to have today and share with them the insights we've got now into the lives that young people are living, and they can use that intelligence to explore new ways of working with them so that they meet the needs of young people.